Jeff Krause is State Director of Mufon in Southern California. He's investigated many fascinating cases, the most notable the SLO UFO and encounter at Edwards. He's author of the blog, The Field Investigator's Toolbox, and is currently working on 2 books, one with the same name, The Field Investigator's Toolbox Volume 1 and the SLO UFO. In this presentation, we're going to be looking at a topic that gets attention, but I sometimes wonder whether we're actually not paying it enough attention. From Christopher Columbus to the famous Nimitz incident, USOs have been one of the mainstays in UFO folklore. Jeff Krause joining us. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm really good, and really keen to talk about this topic, USOs. And I just wanted to start with, do you think there could be as many UFOs traveling beneath the surface of our waters as there are in the skies?
Well, Dean, first off, the only distinction between a USO and a UFO is where it is above sea level or below sea level. That is the only difference. They're the exact same craft. They have the exact same principles of propulsion. And that's what enables them, in fact, to be able to go through the waves without leaving a big splash or ripples or travel underwater at faster speeds than we can. The field that's around the craft gets them through interstellar space, gets them through our atmosphere, and they have no problem because water is basically just different kinds of gases at a different density. Makes absolutely no difference when you're using a field to move your craft rather than propulsion to push through an atmosphere or whatever type of resistance you encounter. So that distinction right there is pretty much nil. The same thing, I think.
Yeah.
Now, as far as what's our planet made of, it's mostly water. So I think their largest playground is underwater. And if you want to hide somewhere, well, on Earth, that's your best bet. We have very little reconnaissance underwater. And, satellites can only view so much through the water. They can only detect so much. We do have good radar and we have good sonar. And that's how some of these encounters have been able to be captured, because we were able to track some. I don't believe we're able to track all of them due to the fact that, they have quite higher technology in use than we have. But every now and then they slip up.
Yeah. I was watching a UFO investigative show recently, and they were trying to solve a mystery, and they looked at four different cases during the show, and the one common factor they came up with at the end was that water was involved every time. It was either a lake or an ocean.
It's incredible how many instances there are of accounts with UFOs either near water, in proximity of water, near dams. And, one theory I have is any force in nature, a naturally occurring force that's going to provide energy, could be something that's tapped into by them. This is one of the things we don't know. I mean, sure, there's accounts of them over nuclear energy plants, and the no-brainer there is that they're able to siphon energy off a reactor somehow. We can't explain how they do it, but somehow there's been reports of that happening. Over water, and especially hydroelectric dams and things like that, I think it could be the same principle as that, or perhaps they're just using the water to separate it, and there's their source of hydrogen. They probably have, the technology to get energy out of water a lot easier than we can. So that could be a good explanation of it. Or maybe they're from a water world.
Right.
Maybe their home environment is underwater. See, these are things we don't know. And, we make a lot of what we like to call educated guesses. And in truth, they're supposition, because we really don't know.
Ivan Anderson created a stir with his book, Invisible Residents, about 30 years ago, when he suggested that there could be a separate civilization older than Homo sapiens existing under our oceans.
I'm not familiar with that book, but now that you mention it, I'm going to want to read it. I see nothing incredible about the hypothesis. Could be. We know very little about what's under there, and it doesn't take a whole lot of technology. If you're on this ocean floor and you dig a tunnel and make a cave under there with an airlock, well, that's about all it takes.
Yeah. Well, I think they made a couple of movies shortly after the book was released. one of them was the abyss, and it kind of went along those lines where that underwater civilization existed and actually saved the lives of the crew in the end. But it's quite an interesting theory.
Well, you know, the myths that we have going back from prehistory and on talk of civilizations under the water, and you know, we can't think that they were all hallucinating back then or just making stuff up. They had, you know, pretty strong beliefs in that had to have some sort of origin point.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even really discovered, you know, anything really under our oceans. In fact, I think the search percentage is really low. So, I mean,
no, and as technology gets us further down, we're making discoveries every time that we never thought were possible.
Yeah.
Look at the life we've discovered by sea vents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we never thought that would be possible at all. And now it's giving us greater vision as to what we can look for on exoplanets in our search for life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Jeff, what proportion of UFO sightings are reported to MUFON that are water related?
I can't give you an exact percentage of the cases that have been closed as USOs or unknowns. It's probably around, I would guess, the 10% range possibly, but it could be higher. Now, you got to consider that roughly 95% of the cases that come into MUFON are easily explainable. They're not the ones that we really are in this for.
Mm-hmm.
It's that 5% of cases that fit the criteria where they can't be explained. No matter how we try to break the information, it stands up, and we have to go along with the fact that that's, you know, a good case in a UFO, or UAP as they like to refer to it now in Navy jargon. But I myself have had a significant number of cases that involve either being right next to the proximity of the ocean, craft on the ocean, or actual USOs from under the ocean. So, you know, I'd say that my personal cases of the unknowns I've closed, that would be maybe 3 to 5% of my own cases.
Yeah. Well, your area is a real hotspot. The Southern Californian coast has attracted a lot of theories that there could even be an underwater UFO base there. So, and a lot of people are paying attention to that.
It depends on which theory of the underwater base you're talking about. I think there's probably something on the far side of Catalina and down in the depths there. Maybe up more towards Monterey in the gorge there, because that's goes down to some sudden drop-offs in some really deep areas. Now, there was a big flap a few years ago about someone saw on Google Earth this plateau that looked like an unusual shape and structure and seemed to have pillars in front of what looked like a cave and a subterranean entrance. And these are, you know, theories put forth by people who don't totally understand how Google Earth works, for one thing. This is a satellite many miles above the Earth taking photos directly down. As far as I know, they don't have the capability to bend light yet to get a photo going inside a structure or an opening to determine anything. Now, you get many anomalies there, and this one in particular is well known by the United States Navy. It's called the Shoyu Mount. They've had submarine practices near there. It's, you know, a fairly well explored region, heavily trafficked by ships above ground through the channel. So it is really not a likely location for a base anyway, especially if you want to be unobtrusive in your approaches and departures. Now, with the Nimitz encounter, when they saw many craft descending from 80,000 feet to sea level repeatedly, that was on the other side of Catalina Island, not the close side that you could see from shore or the area traveled through the channel. Now, repeated visits from that altitude over a few days by multiple craft that were tracked on radar, going at some speeds clocked at 7,800 miles an hour or more. Now that tells me that there's something going on the other side there. We don't know what. we're making supposition by this because we have no proof or evidence. But hey, I'm pretty sure that they weren't diving looking for fish there. Okay, that was, you know, something going on. And when the encounter group sent investigators to fly out and see what was going on, they noticed a huge bubbling in the water, like 60 feet in diameter, as if there was something larger under the water. But then, of course, we hear they followed the TAC UFO, which was a good story, and they got great gun camera footage of that. But I want to know about the large thing under the water there. I mean, did they ignore that? Did that just go away? Or is there more to the story that's classified and we're not hearing about? I tend to think that might be the case. Because, you know, if I was an admiral, I sure wouldn't be deceived by a diversion going off, you know, one way. Sure, I'd have someone follow the diversion, but my attention would still be on the larger object that was discovered. I sure wouldn't forget about something that size in the water.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that was tracked. We just haven't heard the details of that.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much you know, but is like the Malibu anomaly all part of this area?
Well, the Shoyu Mount is not very large in reality, and it's off the coast of Malibu, but there's not, the coastline in Southern California along that area is really kind of boring. There's not a lot of features, especially underwater, that you would see, not like up further north, say around the Monterey Bay area, where they actually have deep canyons going down to, you know, some great depths out there that are relatively close to the shore when you start getting access to that canyon. A lot easier to find things like that. And again, down in the San Diego area, there's canyons off of La Jolla and the areas down there that go deeper quicker than any of the areas up around in that Malibu or Catalina Channel Island area, until you get to the other side of the Channel Islands.
Right.
And then you get to the drop off of the continental shelf and it starts getting deeper.